Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Kirkpatrick, Director of Sales here at American Lighting. Today, I get to talk to you about my favorite subject, which is Trulux Tape Light. And for those of you who are maybe not Trulux Tape Light enthusiasts like myself, to give you a reminder of what Trulux is, it is our full system of low voltage tape light. So it includes tape, power supplies, extrusions, and controls. But today specifically, we're just going to talk about the white light tape that we offer within the system. So as you guys know, there's several layers of light that you need to use in order to come up with a great lighting design. Those include accent, task, and ambient or general lighting. So today we're going to talk about all the different types of tapes and when to use what and what you have at your disposal when you're putting together these projects. So, get started. We will talk about our commodity tape light. So, none of us like to say commodity tape, but there are projects, maybe with a home builder or where maybe the budget's not as big as you were hoping for, where you need a really cost effective but quality product. And that would fall under our commodity tape light. So, we have three different versions. We have our standard grade. So, looks like this guy right here. You can see that the diodes are spread pretty far apart. That is to save costs on the actual materials. And your cutting increment is about every 6.5 inches. So you have your standard grade, which is going to be used for accent lighting. You then have your high output. So your high output tape light is going to look like this. So you get a few more diodes on there than you did with the standard grade. That is going to increase your lumen output. So for our standard grade tape, we're looking at about 150 lumens per foot. For your high output, you're looking at about 300 lumens per foot. And then lastly, you have your spec grade tape. So the spec grade tape is going to look just like this guy right here. So more diodes than you saw in the previous two. This one is going to be cuttable every 1.97 inches and deliver 525 lumens per foot. So with these guys, you're going to be able to order them in 16, 32, or 100-foot reels, depending on how large your project is. And the great thing about Trulux is that we want to make sure that when the installer is in the field, they are ready to put everything together and they're not missing any parts and pieces. So when you get your pouch of tape light, inside the bag, you are going to get your reel of tape, which is going to have a 6-foot lead wire on it. So this is your wire that's going to go back to your power supply. You have your red, which is your positive, and then black is your neutral wire. And then in addition to getting the lead off of your reel, you're going to get two different types of connectors. So any of you that have gone through the assembly training that we put on, you will know there's two different types of connectors. And when I do the training, I typically will say at the end of this training, you are going to be a block connector fan or a heavy duty connector fan. So you have your heavy duty connector. You can see that one of them is very small, maybe easy to hide in an extrusion, versus this other one is more robust. So typically what I say is that your heavy duty connector is going to be used for contractors who maybe aren't known for their dainty little hands. So you're going to be able to pull up the hood. You will have those little metal teeth bite into your tape light. So when you shut this hood, you will hear a snap. That way you know your tape light has actually made a solid connection with your connector. So you're going to get 3 of these heavy duty connectors with your 6-foot lead wire attached. So if you need to cut and reconnect your tape light, you can. Less waste, which is always great. And then you're also going to get your block connector. So your block connector can be used multiple ways. That's personally why it's my favorite connector to use. So you're going to get 3 of the con kits that have the 6-foot lead wire on it with a block connector on one side. And then you're going to get a standalone block connector. So as you can tell, there are lots of different connectors included in these 16, 32, or 100-foot reels. So that no matter what kind of connection you need to make in the field, you have plenty of these connectors. So with your block connector, you have the block connector with your lead wire. So this is going to lead back to your power supply. You can also use the block connector for a splice connector. I typically don't recommend doing a splice connection because you'll end up losing a big chunk of your light with your continuous run. But hey, if you're in a bind and you need to be able to take two pieces of tape, butt them together to make a continuous run, you would use this little block connector. So you have your slot where the tape goes into on one side, and then you also have your other side for the other piece of tape light. On top of your connector, there are little screws. You will get this tiny little baby screwdriver inside every bag so that you have just the right tool. You will screw down onto these little screws and it will make connection with your copper pads on your tape light. So again, all your connectors are included, so don't worry about specifying those on your order. You will have your block connector, your heavy duty connector, and then you will also have your reel of tape with your lead wire attached. So that is true for all of our different tapes. So far we've only talked about our commodity tape light. After that, we also offer our designer tape light. So same thing we talked about before, standard, high output, and spec grade. Each one of those grades are going to offer you a different light output. So your standard grade is always going to be used for accent lighting. Your high output is going to be used for task lighting. And then your spec grade is going to be used for all sort of general lighting applications. So just as a refresher, this is what we looked at before. Low cost, great quality, fewer diodes, long cutting increments. If you want to increase your lumen output, have more diodes per foot, and reduce the cutting increment size, you're going to want to go with our high density tape light. So you'll notice that on our high density tape light, the diodes are much smaller than the commodity tape that we talked about. That is because we are using high efficiency 2216 diodes, or as my friend Alyssa would call them, little baby diodes, to produce more lumens, but also get the diodes closer together so we don't have to see any of those dots or striations that you might see when the diodes are spread further apart. So for our standard grade, you get a little more lumen output at 235 lumens per foot. You'll also be able to cut it every 2.46 inches. And then your max run on this guy is going to be about 32 feet. So when you order single color tape light, just know that you cannot change the color temperature in the field, right? It only produces one color temperature, hence why it's called single color. So you can order any of these tapes in 27, 3,000, 3,500, 4,000, and sometimes 5,000K. We also offer 3 different IP ratings. So IP rating stands for ingress protection. So that's going to tell you how much dust can get onto the product and how much water. So typically the industry standard is going to be IP20 tape light. That means that it's dry location rated only. So don't sneeze on it, don't get dust on it, because it could harm the product. Everything in the Trulux offering has a nano coating on it, making it IP54. So I'm going to get it close. You can see that there's a little sheen to the tape light. That is your coating that goes on top. So it's actually a really good thing we mentioned it, because when you are making these connections in the field, we always recommend that you take a little emery board or a nail file and then scrape that coating off of those copper pads. That way you can make a solid connection using our connector. So IP54, which is going to be damp location rated, meaning you could take a damp cloth, wipe this down if any sort of splatter gets on it, and you're not going to harm the tape at all. We also have IP65, which has a silicone jacket over it that is outdoor rated. And then we offer IP68, which is submersible. Now, I know what you're going to ask. Can I use it in a pool? And unfortunately, the answer is no, because the tape is not treated for chemicals. So that chlorine is going to eat away at the coating and make it no longer IP68. We do have other products for those sort of applications, but IP68 tape light would not be a good solution for pools. So back to designer tape light, you have your standard grade, which we discussed. Then you have your high output, high density tape light, which again just means more diodes per foot. That is what's giving you more light output. So you're going to be at 385 lumens per foot. cuttable every 1.51 inches, and it comes in those same reel lengths that we've talked about before, 16, 32, and 100-foot reels. And believe me, by the end of this training, you are definitely going to know what size reels we sell. We also have our Spec Eco. So similar to the other specification grade tape light that we talked about, but the diodes are more efficient. So now you're looking at 5.8 watts per foot, and then you're at 640 lumens per foot. So that is our designer tape light, again, available in 27, 3, 35, 4, and 5000K, and available in the 3 IP ratings, damp, wet, and submersible. And then we have the newest of the Trulux tape, which is our COB. So most of you have probably seen this out on the market. In my opinion, this is the future of tape light. In the next 5 years, we will not see traditional tape light with the individual diodes on the PCB. Everything is going to have a phosphor coating on it. And the reason for the phosphor coating is to eliminate any dotting that you might see inside the channel. So typically, when you are using a traditional tape light, you're going to want to look at all the different types of extrusions that we have, which we have over 35 different types that range from surface mount, recess mount, so if you're going to embed it into floating shelves, or we have drywall extrusions. So when you're pairing your tape with your extrusion, a lot of times you're going to have to get an extrusion that is at least a half an inch deep. That would allow you to keep the diodes away from the lens so you don't see those individual diodes, and it allows the light to fill up the inside of the extrusion to eliminate any of those hot spots. With COB, you don't have to worry about that anymore. So it takes away the guessing game of figuring out what tape do I use with what extrusion. With this, it's already diffusing the light so that you can even use an extrusion that's about 1/4 of an inch, like our economy extrusion, which can be used underneath cabinets. As most of you know, a lot of the cabinets out there right now no longer have a reveal. So being able to supply something that is very low profile, thin, flexible, and not obvious underneath the cabinet has become a huge selling point in the industry. So I'm sure you're picking up a theme here that we have our standard grade COB for accent lighting, and then we have our high output tape light for any sort of task lighting applications. So for those, you're running about 220 lumens per foot all the way to 450, so very bright. The one thing that I want to mention, what makes ours different than some of our competitors out in the market, is that we actually take into account that there is a yellow phosphor over the diodes. So what does that mean? When you have a 3000K diode and then you put a yellow phosphor over it, it's going to color shift a little bit. So you might actually get a warmer color temperature than 3000K because of that yellow jacket that goes over the diodes. So how we go ahead and make sure that it's consistent at a 3000K is that we use a 3200K diode, use the phosphor over it to color adjust to 3000K. So everything in the Trulux line, we have single binning. So no matter if you order something today or 6 months from now, the color temperature is going to match. And then we also carry a 5-year warranty and then 90+ CRI on all of our products. So no matter if you're using your commodity tape or designer, all of those specs are the same across the board. So you know you're getting a great quality product. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and finish with our very high lumen, very impressive tape light. We have 2 different versions. So we have our Spec Ultra, which is cuttable every 0.32 inches. Amazing. So you can get down to your exact cutting increment. So the Spec Ultra, you're about 7 watts per foot, 650 lumens per foot, and you can cut it again every 0.32 inches. And all the same connectors that we've used in all the other tapes. So your block connector, your heavy duty connector, all of those will work with even these tape lights that have diodes very close together. That is actually why we have a little slot that allows the diode to sit inside that connector so that it can fit right underneath there, and you can still line up your screws with the copper pads on the tape light. So you have your Spec Ultra, and then you have your Vega tape. So look at the size of those diodes. Very large, very powerful, very efficient. So this is 7 watts per foot, but it is pumping out over 1,100 lumens per foot. And I know what you guys are thinking. Why do I need 1,000 lumens per foot? And is it going to melt as soon as I turn it on? Well, the answer is that a lot of people are looking for indirect lighting solutions. So rather than using downlights, they may take a cove and you call it something like a performance cove, where you use a very high lumen output tape light to light it so that it gives you general lighting throughout the space, but it's still concealed so you don't have that glare. So the Vega tape has become an extremely popular SKU in the line for things like the performance cove or drywall extrusions. I know a lot of you have probably seen the extrusions with tape light that are acting as, the general lighting, but they're just strips of tape throughout the space. This is a perfect solution for those kind of applications. Now, keep in mind, I had mentioned extrusions. Now, I know there's some people out there that are like, hey, there's 3M in the back. I'll just stick it up there, hope for the best. But we highly recommend using an extrusion. Not only does it make the product look better, but it's made out of aluminum. So it's going to pull the heat away from the tape. And then it's also going to give you that completely diffused look without all the glare. So using this 1,000 lumen per foot tape light, you are going to want to make sure that you have a robust heat sink so that it doesn't get hot over time. So it's using something like the universal that's at least 1/2 inch deep or has more aluminum to it is going to be a better option for any of those high lumen output tape lights. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me today. We have covered all of our single color Trulux tape light SKUs. We've talked about connectors, how the reels come, 16, 32, or 100-foot reels. And then you've also gone through all the different ways that you can use our connectors. For more information, reach out to sales@americanlighting.com.